And so we've reached the end of season 1 of the Righteous Gemstones. Last episode of me running around the house with a pickle in my mouth for season 1. If you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Tidkamar. I used to write for a place called Pathos about this kind of religion, about the non-denominational, high-demand, evangelical groups. I did that for 10 years, a blog called No Longer Quivering. Well, they made us rebrand from being blogs to being columns. So you call it whatever you want. I'm currently working on a book called With Strange Fire about my time in those strange groups. And the group I was in was way more radical than anything that they've shown on the Righteous Gemstones. I know I've said that I'm doing a breakdown of the theology, and I've come to see it's not exactly theology. Let's just say what I'm doing a breakdown of is Christian behaviors and beliefs combined. So I guess that's theology. What I find interesting about the gemstones is they say they believe this and they actually act like that, like most of us do, like most of us that identify as Christians do, except for the holier than thous. They don't do that. So these are my opinions. Don't bully anybody I'm going to talk about, but I don't know how you can bully a fictional character. Okay, episode 9. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning. And before I even reviewed it, I started writing down all these notes about what it represented. One thing I love about the Righteous Gemstones is when they hit the season finale, they wrap up all the storylines neatly, and they give you what I call that salvation, forgiveness, feel-good moments. There have been the ends of Righteous Gemstones where I have actually been a little bit in tears, like the end of season 3 and the end of season 1. I'm going to have to rewatch season 2's ending to see if it affected me the same way. Okay, so we've got darkness versus light. We've got struggle versus ease in this episode. We've got hate and love. The power of forgiveness. And love may be the strongest force in the entire world, but without forgiveness, it can't happen. Forgiveness is the oil and the sanctification that enables love to happen and flourish. That's just my thoughts on that. And we open with Amy Lee dying. We're not told what she's dying of, but she's in the hospital. They've shut off life support and they're just waiting. They're all there waiting right surrounding her. That is a terrible place to be. That happened to me when my father died. I had to have the machinery turned off and sit there, and I was the only one. Everybody else in the family ran. And it's an uncomfortable place to be, so I feel for all of them. She's dying, and all 4 of them are weeping. They gather around to hold hands and pray for Amy Lee, like I would expect any professing Christian family to do, until a bee shows up. A single bee causes chaos. If you can count on one thing for the gemstones, it's overreaction. And they just lost their minds when this bee shows up and tries to land on Amy Lee, and they all start trying to evict the bee. And it doesn't go well. They trash that hospital room. You start seeing things get knocked over and broken, and you're going, oh my God, what are these people doing? What's wrong with them? So you see them trashing the hospital room, and then we're at the credits. Eli calls a family meeting at the same location where Scotty's van is found and where Scotty is found dead. All 3 of the siblings show up. Jesse is limping because Amber shot him in the rear. And Eli says there's a bunch of questions from the cops that the cops have shown up. Judy and Kelvin oink, and they out Jesse for everything that he has done. The blackmail. They talk about the blackmail, and Jesse confesses to having attacked Johnny's seasons. Eli is super distressed. He says one of the funniest things I've ever heard come out of Eli's mouth. My God, Jesse, I threw a potato through the man's window. They all accidentally out themselves to their daddy. They start oinking on each other. They start ratting each other out. They start being that thing. And he fires them all for their bad behavior. He says he's brokenhearted and none of them has any appreciation for anything that they've been given. And he's right. He is absolutely right. But Judy makes me laugh as usual because, as usual, inappropriately, she is more worried about her house and what money to support herself. So she's asking Daddy, Daddy, what about our houses? And he's like, you do what you want. And he just walks off. Then we go to Amber and Jesse's house, where Amber has her girl squad, her group of women from the church that are all surrounding her, and they're packaging up cookies for some reason. And Mandy is ranting and ranting about Chad and about what she's doing, and she's divorcing him and everything. Then she turns it on Amber and says, so what are you going to do about Jesse? Amber mean girls her so hard that she makes Mandy break down and cry. There are times that I dislike Amber severely, and season 1 I was just like looking at her side eye and going, oh my God, girl. No, you can't say that crap. I don't care if you are the pastor's wife. So Jesse shows up at the house to talk to Amber in front of her friends, and she can't really tell him to take his raggedy rear end out because she's around all of her friends. So she goes into his office with him to talk to him while her friends keep packaging up the cookies. He tells her that his daddy fired him. They have a horrible fight. Amber just keeps saying she wants her family back. And Amber orders Jesse to go to Haiti and bring Gideon back. Amber goes all enforcer on his rear end, and I kind of like it. And then we see the Judy Bloomin' Onion meeting. Judy is in Outback Steakhouse, very obviously, because they have a bloomin' onion sitting in front of her. And BJ shows up. They have a meeting. It's extremely awkward. There's a lot of awkward conversations. She gives him a bag of his stuff that he's left at the house. They both start talking about the regrets and how they thought that they had something special that was going to last a long time. And it comes out that BJ thinks she's had tons of lovers. And I'm not even going to repeat all the filthy language that Judy used. But it turns out it was only BJ. She had had no other lovers. He was her first. And he tells her he would have liked to have known that he was her first. Judy starts telling this crazy convoluted tale of her pretty much essaying her professor and kidnapping his son. It's ugh. And then she has to give him a new car. He gave her a very mild compliment about her shirt, and she thought it was a sexual come on. Okay, Judy. He takes out a restraining order. There's conversation. She mentions my favorite place in the Southeast, one of them, Harris Teeter. She brings in a Harris Teeter mention. Harris Teeter shout out. I once worked there for about 6 months. I have to tell you sometime. That's an interesting place to work. And she says this to BJ. I'm a handful and you're perfect. Nobody is perfect. She apologizes to BJ in tears. It's something to see because, Judy doesn't apologize much at all. She's like that old British saying that's sometimes embroidered on cushions. Never apologize, never explain. Well, she's explaining and apologizing. And BJ says, it's a lot. Yeah, it was. And then we have a meeting at Locust Grove. They discuss the fact that Uncle Baby Billy has fled the building. He's left the building. And Eli calls on one of the other pastors and says, recite John 3:16. And the pastor stands up and is like, for God so loved the world, blah, blah, blah. He gave his only begotten son. He gets the job. He becomes the new pastor of Locust Grove, at least temporarily. And then we cut to Kelvin's house, where they're all sitting in, I don't know if it's the living room or the media room. I'm not really sure, but they're all sitting around the sofa, eating popcorn, watching The Never Ending Story, the super sad scene where the horse is caught in the goo and starts the sand, what do you call that? The quicksand starts going down. So they're all three are sad and mopey, and Kelvin is crying seeing the horse being sucked down in the quicksand. Judy tells Jesse that he's being stupid. He needs to get to Haiti and bring Gideon back. But Jesse is scared of the tough guys and the AIDS there, so he tells her he's scared of it. And there's some talk, and I have to laugh at Judy again. She says, "Welcome to my world, you effing babies." Made me laugh. Kelvin thinks he might be Jesus or Satan or something, and they're all laughing at him, explaining this about the voices he's hearing of Jesus and Satan in his head. Judy says the most inappropriate thing ever, particularly when he talked about he's never had the urge to date or anything, said, "Kelvin, you sound thirsty AF." And they all talk about missing mama, and then we have a moment of sweetness among the siblings, sweetness and forgiveness, where they start taking turns telling each other it was going to be okay, which is a good thing. That's what family is supposed to do. They're supposed to tell you when you're going through tough times, hang on, it's going to be okay. And apparently their mama was expert at that. So they're all stepping up to do what they need to do for their siblings, even though they may fight like cats and dogs. When the rubber meets the road, they all have each other's backs. Important to know about family. Jetsy sets up for Haiti in one of the family jets, the father, which makes me laugh, the three jets. And he's getting his shots right on the tarmac for the stuff you have to get. And he asks for the vaccination against AIDS. They have to tell him there is no vaccination against AIDS. He was like bummed out. And then we have one of the craziest Kelvin situations. Kelvin showing up like what he would think Satan would wear, okay? He's got on his black leather pants. He's got on a black ruffly blouse. He's got his hair in a point downward instead of a point upward. It just looks stupid. He just looks silly. And he says he thinks he might be Satan. He's turning into a dark lord, so he's turning the whole thing over to someone else. He's turning the teen church and the youth ministry over to Ronald, who works over at GameStop. He's wearing his guy liner and all, and it just makes me laugh the way he's dressed. It's just so completely strange for him. Dot Nancy chases him downstairs saying, Queef is dancing over at the club Sinister. She calls him Queef, and I just laughed. She shows him some pictures of Queef, as she keeps calling him, on the Instagram. And Jesse defends himself and starts saying they're not gay, they're just a couple of dude friends. Kelvin is shocked to see Keith cavorting with his old devil-worshipping crew, looking buff, and he looks very chemically altered in those pictures. Kelvin runs off screaming. He runs off down the hall, get out of my way, blah, 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 blah. He's screaming, screaming, screaming. For me, the next part was very interesting. They started off with random street scenes of Haiti. Now, my old church, Haiti was one of our big ministries. We went down to Haiti many times. When the Haitian earthquake happened, we sent a huge team of people because we'd been supporting the church there for ages, and a lot of really bad stuff went down. A lot of people we knew there had died. So Haiti, sure enough, needs help. It does, still to this day. We see a bunch of random street scenes of Haiti, and we see Gideon doing his thing. He's working, trying to get water for the Haitians, clean water. We see him working hard, and then we see him not working so hard, walking along with a bag of candy, and the kids surrounding him in Haiti, which is really common when they see white people. When they see Americans, they'll come up and want things, and everybody I know brings stuff, because it would be almost rude not to. Jesse arrives in the middle of this, and he tells Gideon about Scotty's death. Come home, Jesse asks. He says he was looking for that freedom that comes with telling the truth, but that it didn't happen for him. He felt no more free than he did before. Gideon says he's not coming home. Jesse tries to counter that with arguments. He says, let these Catholics and these liberals help these folks get their clean water. Yeah, no. Gideon says no, he's dedicating himself to doing this as repayment for the bad stuff he's done. He feels like he needs to do this. He needs to make amends, and this is how he's chosen to do it. He tells Jesse that Jesse has to figure out his own life. Actually, very good advice. And it hints at a maturity level in Gideon has that his own father does not possess. Jesse apologizes too for what has happened and his role and the things he was doing at that Atlanta prayer conference that put Gideon in this spot in the first place. And then Gideon asked this, which I had to laugh when he asked this at first, and then I was like, ooh, deep, 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 deep. He said, do you really want to make things better? Do you just want to make the bad stuff go away? Man, that's deep. Jesse tries to manhandle Gideon by pretending to come in for a hug, trying to come in for a hug and then pull him away. And they argue and they're calling each other stupid. Very immature and silly, but fun. Jesse says this, the dumbest thing you can do in religion is be an effing missionary. No, it's not the dumbest thing you can do, but if you look at it from the way Jesse's looking at it, with the money and this prestige and all the stuff that he's had, I guess it would look like the stupidest thing. But let me tell you something, going out and blessing other people is sometimes the best thing you can do. You'll actually come away with a lot. I've always found that to be a truism for me. And then we see BJ showing up during the night to see Judy. He's rejected because they said the entire compound is on lockdown. He's so rejected he has to sneak into the compound. He climbs a fence, gets on the compound. He's sneaking past the amusement park, which just makes me laugh because he is sneaking past Jesse and Kelvin riding elephants and Judy guessing her weight and various things. And security gets him. He's wearing a trench coat and they get him to the ground. But before that, he starts trying to talk him up to do this stuff. And he says, it's time to be a man. Calls out the guard, and the guard threatens to kick his rear end. So that was kind of funny. So he's over the fence. He's running through the amusement park. And when they get him, the guard calls out, step away from the plastic circus lady, Judy. And then they tase him. But he looks like a real weirdo. He's got on his trench coat. This little speaker pops out and falls to the ground. And it's playing In Your Eyes. And you can see suddenly that he's trying to reenact the scene from Say Anything, where I think it's John Cusack has this speaker and he's holding it up and he's playing In Your Eyes to the girl in her window. So he's trying to reenact that. And it just makes me laugh because there he is trying to reenact a movie from the 80s that was obviously significant to him. I'm trying to do something super romantic for Judy. And then we have Kelvin at Club Sinister. There he is. And he's chasing down the Satanist guys that he knows and asking them about Keith. And they tell him, the baby is sleeping. The baby is sleeping. And he's just not having it. He is super angry, Keith. Still in his black getup. So he cusses out the main guy. He says, no sweat, man. No problems here. Keith's over there. So he points to where Keith is, and Keith is floating in what looks like a pool of milk that has been thinned out, or maybe Jell-O. I'm not even sure what that stuff was he was floating in. He's in a rubber gimp suit. I mean, head to toe, gimped out, and it's red and it's very tight. I read the actor said that it took him a full bottle of lube to get in that suit, and I believe it because it is tight. So the suit has all these rubber hoses coming up out of. He's got on like a scuba mask. They're pumping something in there. Who knows? Folks are all around that tank, and they're huffing on these hookah hoses. They're connected somehow to the suit and the stuff in the thing. I was like, ugh, I don't know what they're all breathing, but they are. The funny thing is that Keith has this enormous erection hanging out of the suit. That's the only part of him that you can actually see the skin. Boing! So when I started doing a screen cap of this episode, I wanted to get a picture of him in that gimp suit, but I did not want to get a picture of him with that hanging out. I'm not offended by penis. We know that this is a Danny McBride. This is a Danny McBride production. So you know what happens in Danny McBride productions and all of his. There's male frontal nudity. You're going to see way more cock than you ever wanted to see in your entire life, and you're going to hear way more curse words than you're ever going to want to hear in a lifetime. Now, I am not affected by that, but a lot of people are very offended by those sort of things. Kelvin jumps over the side in his leather and black to try and rescue Keith. And I'm looking at this and going, wait a minute, he's acting like he's Prince Charming and Keith is Snow White. He didn't kiss Keith, but it's the same kind of dynamic going on there. And when he pulls the mask off and starts pulling all of the hoses, Keith says to him, I'm so lost without you. And then he mutters, hold me. How Kelvin did not figure out they were both gay at that point, I do not know. I mean, it seemed obvious to me. And then we get the security office, and we have BJ and Judy having the most inappropriate sexual conversation in front of the poor guards. And I love it because the guards keep making faces, like if I was there, beginning the side eye and looking and frowning too. So we get to see the reactions. The reactions are hysterical. They get back together. He kisses her and they're back together. And Judy's talking about her pants being wet. And then we have BJ uttering a funny line, that one of the funniest ones I've ever heard coming out of his mouth is, they better not be Judy Gemstone. Talking about them pee. Save that piss for my chest. Ooh, BJ, you were way kinkier than I ever dreamed. Jesse returns and tells Amber that he could not get in to return home. Amber snubs him and tells him to get out of the house and drives off and leaves him standing there on the tarmac. Then Jesse, Kelvin, and Judy all converge again where they had their meeting with their dad. Right where Scotty was found. They're all on that back road. They're talking, trying to figure out where the money is. They're going to chase down this money. Jesse says he can't go home again, so he's going to be a detective, and he's going to spend his life chasing down that money. Kelvin finds a little plastic Jesus. The same kind of plastic Jesus that is the main subject of that song. I don't care if it rains or it freezes, as long as I got my plastic Jesus sitting on the dashboard of my car. And they all realize there's only one person in this whole wide world they all know that has a plastic Jesus on their dashboard, and that would be Uncle Baby Billy. So they start putting two and two together in their minds. True confession time. When I was completely immersed in my old CULT church, I had a plastic Jesus on my dashboard. And I have gotten such a kick out of seeing the plastic Jesus in this way on the show, like when Uncle Baby Billy is getting a little loving from Aunt Tiffany, and poor old the Jesus is bonking around to the rhythm of what they're doing. They go and tell Eli right away, the siblings. Eli is pleased and rehires him as a result, says that they have done well. Eli picks up plastic Jesus and just tosses him hard, and he breaks into pieces. They all start giving Eli a hard time. I laughed at that one too. And they had to start, all four of them, trying to glue poor plastic Jesus back together. But next scene, Eli's driving himself in his big limousine. Plastic Jesus is on his dashboard now, but instead of looking like regular old plastic Jesus doing like this, he looks now like he's hanging 10. He's surfing on that dashboard. So they all go to Freeman's Gap, where Amy Lee was raised and where Uncle Baby Billy now lives, in the family compound there. They drive up, they notice the brand new, restored antique car. They notice the boat, the fountain, all kinds of new things that are put in. And you can see there's even a big swimming pool that's been put in the back. So where did Uncle Baby Billy get all that money for that crap? That was what they're saying. Tiffany meets him at the door and dramatically says that Uncle Baby Billy is dead, that he has passed. But Judy spots him running away, and the chase is on. They're all chasing Uncle Baby Billy. In the rain, through the thunder and lightning, they're chasing him across this big hayfield. Uncle Baby Billy is caught by Jesse right where there are some pitchforks and some hay and some various things. And they're all fighting in this cornfield. Not cornfield, this hayfield. And they're confronting Uncle Baby Billy about the money, stealing the money. You stole our money, you stole our money. They want the money. Uncle Baby Billy goes this long rant where he says he's owed it because of Amy Lee, because of the way that Jesse treated him all those years. The way that he was never helped. He was always treated like the redheaded stepchild. So he is just saying he is owed it and it's his money. He's not giving it away. He unloads on all of them before he grabs a pitchfork and he holds it up in the sky. And when he does, lightning comes down and strikes him down at what looks like dead. And we're like, shocking, not breathing, dead. They pray over him. And they haul him back to the house first. And he's not breathing. They pray over him. They join hands, a whole family, and they start praying over him. A very humble prayer, asking God to spare him. And just like Amy Lee, the bee shows up. This time, instead of swatting at the bee, they all leave it alone. Somebody tries to swat at it, and Eli's like, no, we need to leave this bee. It stings Uncle Baby Billy on the head, and he is back, baby, and revives him. He says he saw Amy Lee and that she has a message for them. She loves them all. And Amy Lee told Uncle Baby Billy to forgive Eli, to forgive him. So then we see this sermon sequence, which is the final sequence of the entire show of this episode. We see Uncle Baby Billy giving the remainder of the money back to Eli. Eli gives a sermon talking about what happened with Uncle Baby Billy and that Amy Lee was there with them. And he says a lot of really smart things in that sermon. I love this one. The goal of all that colliding is to make us appreciate one another. Maybe it is. Eli offers Johnny Seasons the pastor job at the Locust Grove campus, and he accepts it. And then he goes on to say this: if you're not rooting for your enemy's salvation, you are not in line with what the Spirit wants. That's true too. We're supposed to be praying for people, continually blessing them, not fighting with them, that's for sure, no matter how we feel, no matter how put aside we feel, no matter what. Uncle Baby Billy, we see him in a tent revival, an old-fashioned tent revival. And the sign says he's an electric preacher, and that's what Tiffany announces. He's an electric preacher. And Tiffany is selling drawings of what Uncle Baby Billy saw in heaven. Only $39.99, or if you want a full-color crayon one, it's $59.99. So Baby Billy has hit on another successful con. Eli goes on to say this: how we navigate this life and each other defines us. There's a lot of truth to that. And I feel convicted every time I hear that. I'm like, oh, I don't do very well at that. I need to learn. We see Judy and Kelvin getting ready to take the stage at church. And we're happy for Judy because that's all she's ever wanted is to be part of the family ministry. And then we see Jesse going again to Haiti to work alongside Gideon. And he does. He works alongside Gideon without saying a word. Without saying a word. And Gideon is touched and amazed. You could see it on his face, how touched he is, that his father would show up and work alongside of him in something that his father had just put down days earlier. And then we close out with the rest of that beautiful sermon where Eli says, the ability to begin again and to be forgiven. And that's what we're supposed to be offering to others. I know I'm not good at it. I'm awful at it. But every time I see this episode, I cry a little bit. And I'm convicted. I'm convicted that I need to be doing that myself. I need to be treating people a lot more kindly, with a lot more grace. And I try to have short forgiveness lists, and I'm not very good at it, as you all who've watched me handle what happened to my house in June and how I didn't handle that well. So I need this message as much as anybody else. Next week, I start on season 2. And I'm sure I've seen it already, so I know it's a pile of confusion. But I can't remember what the message was then. But this time the message is all about forgiveness, kindness, beginning again, all of that. All of those things that Eli said in his sermon. Those are good messages to take away. Sorry I'm a day late with this. I got caught up in the fact that I was having some technical difficulties. Next week I'm going to try to do for Sunday again. Love you guys. Have a wonderful week.